Welcome to our day 9 discussion. Today we are going to discuss about labels, selectors and replica set. Let's do a quick recap what we have discussed in our day 8 class. In our day 8 class we discussed about the options to create object in Kubernetes. So basically we have the two options to create the object. One, it is using kubectl command, and the second one which we have using YAML. Regarding this kubectl, we already have a very detailed discussion in our day 8. What are the various commands we have, like to get the information for our pods, to get the information for our nodes, to describe the pod or to describe the nodes, to create the pod using run command. Then we discussed about how to log in inside the pod using exec, and finally we discussed about the explain command which provides a metadata for our object. Then we moved into the YAML configuration. The way we have created pod using kubectl, so we created a pod using YAML configuration too. So to write a YAML file, the first thing which we need to mention the object API version. As I have mentioned, each and every object have their own API version, and we are going to have more discussion in authentication and authorization video. Then we need to mention the kind is responsible the kind of object which we are targeting to use. The third one is the metadata, which defines the name of the object, or I would say annotations, or in future when we are going to learn about the namespace, that part also we are good to mention, or I would say labels also we are good to mention in metadata. Then finally we need to mention the specification. In specification, for the kind object of pod, we were mentioning about the containers detail in term of container image and all. Okay, so this is a quick recap for our day 8 discussion. Okay, let's start our today's discussion. So today's first topic is labels. So what is the exact meaning of labels? The exact meaning of labels is tag. So whenever we create our pod, we are good to mention the tag. If we are not going to mention the tag, then by default Kubernetes assign the labels. We are good to say label or tag. Both of them are same, but in Kubernetes language it is called as label or labels, not tag. Okay, let's do a quick demo to understand where we are good to mention the labels in our YAML file configuration and kubectl configuration. Okay, let's start our demo. So for this demo I have already created a cluster name called as demo-aks. Let me quickly connect to this cluster. We'll click on set the cluster subscription. We'll open my cmd. Okay, let me download the cluster credentials. Okay, let me run a command called kubectl get nodes. There's one typo. Okay, so we have successfully logged in inside our demo-aks cluster, and we are able to see both the node. Okay, so let me open the Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to mention a file name called as label.yml. If you see in this example, the API version is v1. We are trying to create a pod, and the name of the pod is dev-pod. We are good to ignore this one. Then we have the specification. In the containers, we are creating a single container name called as ABC, and the image of this container is this one. Okay, so apart from line number apart from line number apart from line number 5 to 7, we are able to understand each and everything. So what is the exact meaning of line number 5 to 7? I would say, as I have mentioned, labels. Labels is exactly labels are exactly tag. Okay, and what is the exact meaning of tag? Tag provides metadata. Okay, metadata means it provides more information regarding our पढ़ा ही नहीं पा रहा हूँ मैं. So in this configuration, we are trying to create a pod. Okay, and the name of the pod is dev-pod. We are good to ignore this one. So in the specification, we are trying to create a container. Name is ABC, and this is the image which we are using. So what we have discussed regarding metadata. Metadata is nothing. Metadata which provides more information about your resource. Okay, so if you see in this example, from line number 4 we are able to understand the name of a pod, and from line number 5 to 7 it is mentioned the labels. As I have mentioned, labels and tag, both of them are same. So it is providing more information regarding the pod, the environment in which it is going to be used as dev. Okay, and it is created by whom? It is created by Gaurav. Okay, so let me quickly create this pod. Okay, let me copy the path. Okay, let me quickly run kubectl get pods. So our pods has been created and it is in running stage. But are we able to see the pods? No. The command is kubectl get pods hyphen hyphen show hyphen labels. Okay, if you see here, apart from the name, ready, status, restart, age, and we have one more column called labels, and in this column we are able to see it is created by whom and the environment. So as I have mentioned, labels comes under metadata, and it is providing more information regarding our pod. Okay, so we have created the pod using YAML configuration. Let me create a pod using kubectl. If you see here, kubectl, I'm going to create a pod name called as dev-pod2, and this is the image. Okay, let me press enter. Okay, let me show the labels for this one. If you see here, in this command we have not mentioned anything regarding the labels. Okay, so it seems like we are not passing any information regarding the labels. What is the value? So the value is run is equal to dev-pod2. So what is the exact meaning of it? I would say, if you are not mentioning the labels, then automatically whatever the command and the name of the pod will be updated in labels. Okay, in Kubernetes, labels play a very important role in terms of replica set, deployment, or any other configuration. Okay, we are going to have very detailed discussion regarding replica set, deployment, and all. But one thing I'm good to say, if you are from the cloud background, the tags are not important there. Means they are important, but in real-time scenarios. But for learning purpose, it is not required or not important. But in Kubernetes, labels are very important. Okay, we are going to learn so many concepts which are working on the basis of labels only. Okay, so as I have discussed, if you are not going to mention any labels while creating the pod, so automatically the command and the name of the pod will become the labels. Okay, so let me run a command to add a label. If you see here, what I'm doing, I have mentioned kubectl label, my pod name, which is this one, and I am adding environment is equal to dev. Okay, I have updated the labels in my pod, and see here. Initially, it was only showing the command and my pod name, but right now it is showing the new label, which is called as environment is equal to dev. Okay, this is the way to add a label. If you want to remove a label, then the command is kubectl label, then my pod name, and then I have to mention key with hyphen. Here, what I'm going to do, I have mentioned the key, which is run, and then hyphen, and let me press enter, and let me run the command again. So labels, if you see here, the label which was present, run is equal to dev hyphen pod 2, has been removed. Okay, so if you want to update the label, then the command is kubectl label pod dev hyphen pod 2, then my label key and values. And if you want to remove the label, then you have to mention the key only, then automatically the labels is going to be removed. So here comes very interesting question. When we created our pod for the first time here, we have not mentioned any label. So automatically a label is assigned, which is on the basis of the command and the pod name. Okay, but how to create a pod using kubectl with a label? So the command is, if you see here, we are going to create a pod name called as dev hyphen pod 3. This is the image, and then we need to mention hyphen l, and then we have passed the key and value. Okay, let me run the command. Let me run a command called show labels. If you see here, right now at the creation of pod, what we have mentioned environment is equal to prod, the same label has been updated. So we are good to say labels are mandatory while creation of pod. Okay, if user is not mentioning the label, then Kubernetes will auto assigned. Okay, and what it is going to be auto assigned, it would be the command and pod name. Okay, and then we discussed about how to add a label inside a pod, and how to remove the labels and how to create a pod with a label. Okay, so with this we have completed our discussion regarding the labels. So we had a very detailed discussion regarding the labels. So the next topic which we are going to discuss is selector. Okay, so what is the exact meaning of selector? Selector means filtering the values. Okay, I would say I have three pods environment of dev. Okay, and I have created 8 pods in environment of lab and 2 pods in environment, I would say, QA. Okay, so if you want to see all the pods in which the environment is equal to lab, then what would be the command? Okay, you know the answer. The answer, it would be 8, because we have 8 pod which we have created inside the lab environment. But if you want to filter out the resource from the given labels, this approach is called selector. We are selecting the values, we are filtering the values. Okay, so in Kubernetes we have two types of selector. Okay, the first one is called as equity based selector, and the second one is called as set based selector. Okay, so what is the difference between the equity based selector and the set based selector? Definitely we have to pass one key in both the cases, but in terms of values, if you are passing only one value, then it comes under equity, and in set based selector you're good to pass multiple values. Okay, so I would say my environment is equal to dev, or my environment is not equal to dev. In both the cases, what I'm trying to mention, in dev equal to dev or not equal to dev, I have the value 1 only. Okay, I can't mention one more value like environment not equal to dev or QA. This approach we can't be implemented in equity based. While in the case of set based selector, we are good to pass like environment in dev forward slash QA. So this approach is 100% correct. Why? We have the one key, but we are passing multiple values. So this is called set based selector if you are passing multiple values, and if you are passing only one value, it will come under equity based selector. Even in set based selector, if you want to pass a single value environment in dev, then also it is fine. So I would say equity based selector only works with equal to or not equal to. These are the two parameters using which equity based selector is going to work. While in the case of set based, it can work on in, not in, and exist. So all the three options are correct. Okay, but whenever you are using equity, we are good to pass equal to or not equal to. That's why it is called as equity based selector. And set based selector basically have in, not in, exist. Okay, let's do a quick demo to understand. So I'm going to mention kubectl get pods hyphen hyphen selector, then I'm going to mention env is equal to dev. So as I have mentioned, we have the two selector, one it is called equity based and the second one is called as set based selector. In equity based, the possible values are equal and not equal. So what I have mentioned, kubectl get pods selector means we are trying to filter out the options which has this key is equal to environment and value is dev. Let me press enter. See, we have two pods which has the same key and value. We'll run a command called kubectl get pod show level. See, we have the three pods in which dev hyphen pod and dev hyphen pod 2 have the key environment and value dev. That's why both the values are coming, and dev hyphen pod 3 does not have the environment of dev. That's why it is not coming. If I'm going to mention environment not, so in this case dev hyphen pod 3 is coming. Why? Because dev hyphen pod 3 does not have the dev attribute, it has production one. So this is a straightforward implementation of equity based selector. Let's do some example for set based selector. If you see in this example, what I have done, I have mentioned kubectl get pods hyphen hyphen selector environment in. As I have mentioned, set has in, not in, and okay. In means environment. This will be the key, and the values, possible values are yes and dev. If any pod which has the key of environment and the values present in test or dev, then it will show. So again, it is going to show both the pods which has the value of dev. Okay. If I'm going to update any random values, then see, it is not showing anything. Why? Because currently we do not have any pod whose environment is present in test 1 2 3 or dev 1 2 3. But this command is going to behave like this. It is going to check for the levels. The first level is this one and the second level this one. And not in, what we have to mention, not in, and see here. So in this case, again, it is going to check for the environment which is not equal to test or environment not equal to dev. So in this case, again, dev hyphen pod 3 will come because it does not have the environment in test or dev, it has the environment present in production. Okay. So with this, we have completed the equity based selector and the set based selector. So the last topic for today is replica set. Okay. So what is the exact meaning of replica set? The exact meaning of replica set is to make sure the high availability of what? Of the pods. Okay. I would say till now what we have done, we have created a pod, and inside the pod we are good to have one container or multiple container according to our requirements. So what I'm trying to say, if I'm going to say replica set, I want to create 10 pods. So what Kubernetes is going to do, it is going to create 10 pods for me. If I'm going to say replica set, I need to decrease the pod, then it is going to decrease the pod size from 10 to 5 for me. So replica set is to make sure whatever the desired state means, whatever the pod requirement is there, to make sure it matches to the current state. So what is the desired state? Here I have mentioned I need a 10 pods, so it has created the 10 pods. I need a 5 pods, it has created the 5 pods. Okay, one more thing I would say, if I have created 10 pods, this will be my desired state. Okay, I want to create how many pods? 10 pods, it will be created. So once my 10 pods are created, if I'm going to delete 2 pods, then we are good to delete this pod. But within a millisecond, Kubernetes is going to create 2 extra pod. Why? Because our desire is to create a 10 pod. So whatever the things we are going to mention in our replica set, the number of pods, it will make sure these pods are always running. So we are good to mention this hierarchy. The smallest unit is pod, okay, and top of the pod we have the replica set. Okay, and the replica set is going to manage home pod. If you are writing a configuration for replica set, it is going to create a pod for you. Okay, so let's do a quick demo to understand the replica set and the other concepts. I have created a file name called as rs.yaml, and in this rs.yaml I have mentioned the configuration. If you see here, the kind I have mentioned replica set, and according to my kind, the API version has been changed. Okay, we are good to run a command called kubectl explain replica set, and here if you see what it is saying, the group is apps which we have mentioned and the version is v1. Okay, if you want more details, we are good to go through this URL. Okay, the next thing which we have mentioned in our metadata is rs-wave. So the replica set name is rs-wave. Okay, in metadata we provide more information regarding the data. So the name of our replica set is rs-wave. In specification, as I have mentioned, what is the purpose of replica set? The purpose of replica set is to make sure the number of pods which we have mentioned, it is going to create. So how many pods we have mentioned? We have mentioned 5. And to mention it in terms of key, we need to mention replicas. Okay. Then from line number 7 to line number 9, we are good to ignore it. We'll come to that point, but right now we are good to ignore it. The line number 10 is mentioning about the template. And here it is mentioned the metadata labels app web. We'll come to that point again. We are good to ignore it. From line number 14, we have mentioned about the containers, and here we are creating a container name called as my container with this image. Okay, so eventually what we are doing, we are creating pod 1, we are creating pod 2, we are creating pod 3, pod 4 and pod 5. Okay, why? Because we have mentioned here replicas as 5. And what is the name of my container? My container name is, I would say my container, it would be created 5 times, and this is the image which we are going to use. As I have mentioned, we are good to ignore from line number 7 to 13. We are going to have a detailed discussion. Let me firstly apply this replica set. So I'm going to run a command called kubectl create -f, my file name. See, the replica set has been created. I'm good to mention kubectl get pods -o and if you see here, our 5 pods has been created. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Our 5 pods has been created, and all the 5 pods are in a running stage. Okay. Have we mentioned anything regarding pod? The answer is no. We have only mentioned regarding the replica set. As I have mentioned, once you are going to mention about the replica set, automatically it is going to create a pod. And inside the pod, what we are going to have? We are going to have the container and it is going to use the image. Okay. So the way we are able to list kubectl get pods hyphen o void, in the same way we are good to list one more object which is called as replica set. So the command is kubectl get replica set hyphen o void. Here it is mentioned the name of my replica set, which I have mentioned here, rs hyphen web. Desired means how many pods I want. I have mentioned 5. This is the 5. This is the current means 5 means currently how many pods we have? 5, and all of them are in a ready stage, and the age it is showing. And what is the name of my containers? The name of my container is my. Okay, and here it is showing selector app is equal to web. We'll discuss about it. Right now we are good to ignore it. Okay, let me run one command. Okay, initially we discussed using kubectl we are good to create a pod, and while creating the pod we are good to mention the label also. So here I am trying to create a pod whose name is test and the label is app is equal to web. Okay, let me press enter. If you see here it is showing pod forward slash test created. If I'm going to mention kubectl get pods hyphen o void, let's see, are we able to see any pod with a name called test? The answer is no. Okay, so but here it is clearly mentioned our pod has been created. So the question here comes, why we are not able to see our pod which we have created? Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use describe command, kubectl describe. So in this case, if we are going to describe the pod, we will get the information, but it would be specific towards the pod. So we need to get a clear information regarding all the pods. So we need to describe what our replica set. So the command is kubectl describe rs. Our replica set name is rs hyphen wave and enter. So as I have mentioned, the describe command provides some more information regarding the component which we have mentioned. An initial demo, we used it for node and the pod. So we are good to use it for replica set also. So these are the details which we have already discussed, the replicas, the pod status and all. But if you see the events, this one, and finally it has successfully deleted this pod. Okay. Again, the question comes, why this pod has been deleted? The answer is replica set works on the principle of labels. Okay, what is labels? Labels are nothing, it is a tag which is a key and value. If you see here the line number selector. Okay, so what is the meaning of selector? Selector meaning is to filter out or to check, do we have any pod with this labels, means app colon web? The answer is no. Have we created any pod with this name? The answer is no. If we are going to get the answer is no, then using this template, what is the template? Template is to use metadata and create a pod with this name. Okay, it has created the 5 pods for us. with the same label, when we tried to create a new pod, it was created. Okay, the creation was done. If you see here, the creation was done, but our rs-web is monitoring the replica set. So what is the responsibility of this replica set is to make sure each and every time these 5 pods are running. Okay, and when these 5 pods are running, on which criteria it is able to filter it out on the basis of this label. So the main functionality of replica set is whatever the labels you have mentioned, it will make sure with this label called app colon wave always our pod are running. Okay, in our desired state, how many pods we have mentioned? We have mentioned 5 pods. So when we created a new pod, okay, with the same labels, so our current stage was changing to 6. What is our desired state? We have mentioned 5 only. That's why it created it and deleted it. Okay, so this is the basic principle of replica set. Let's do a quick recall what we have done till now. We created a replica set name called as rs-web. In our replicas, we mentioned 5. Then what we have mentioned in selectors, the first thing this replica set means rs-web is going to check in our Kubernetes cluster, do we have any pod present with the same label? If the answer is no, it is going to create a 5 pod with this label. If we are going to have any pod present with the same label, it will make sure, I would say we already have the 2 pods. So what it is going to do? It is going to create a 3 new pods with this label configuration. Okay, and the images will be this. And as I have mentioned, replica sets works on the principle of labels. Okay, so it is going to monitor all the pods on the basis of what? Labels only. That's why I mentioned labels are very important for understanding in Kubernetes. So let's do our next demo. The next demo is how many pods we have mentioned? We have mentioned 5 pods, and this is called as our desired state. If we want to change our desired state from 5 to 3, okay, then what about the other 2 pods? It should be terminated. Why? Because in our desired state, we have changed from 5 to 3. And the current state, how many pod we have running? We have running around 5 pods. So it is going to delete 2 pods. Okay. So let's do a quick lab. If you see here, only 3 pods are running. Why? Because we have mentioned 3 pods here. Okay. And let me describe the pods also. And if you see at the bottom, it has deleted 2 extra pod because in our desired state we have mentioned from 5 to 3. So in the current also it should change to 3 and it has deleted the 2 pods. In the same way, we are good to increase the number of pods also from 3. I would say I want 18 pods. See, so what exactly replica set is doing? Replica set is creating a new pods. Okay, and if you are going to describe the pods, all the pod will be created with all the pods will be created with a replica set name and some random number. And let me show you the labels also for the pod. See, all the pod has the same label, app is equal to web. Okay, so with this we have completed the replica set concept, but in terms of which equity based selector. In equity based selector, what we have mentioned, the key and value. In the next demo, we are going to do a replica set on the principle of set based selector, where we are good to mention the one key but multiple values. Okay, value 1 and value 2. I have created a file name called as rs-setbase.yaml. So I have copied the configuration for our set based selector. If you see here, again we are trying to create what? A replica set, and the name is rs-where. The replicas means number of pods which we want is 5. We'll come to this point. This one too. So the specification, the container name, it would be the same, and the image it would be the same, which we have discussed in our equity based selector. So here what we have mentioned, the selectors. Here comes the match expression. Okay, and here as I have mentioned, set based selector works on the principle of one key and multiple values. That's why the key is app operator in value nginx and wave. Okay, so before creating the pod, if it is going to see, do we have any pod which present with this label app nginx or app colon wave? If it is not present, then it is going to create all the 5 pods, or I would say if some pods are present, let's take example 2 pods are present, then in this case it is going to create a 3 pods. Okay, and for creating of the pod, it is going to use this image. The hierarchy again, it would be the same thing. The pod on the top, it will have the replicas. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a pod firstly. Okay, which name is called as test with the same label. Again, I'm going to create one more pod, but I will change the name. Okay, so if I run a command called kubectl get pods, so what I have done, I have created here 2 pods. Okay, and the label key and the label which I have mentioned, app is equal to web, app is equal to web. Firstly, in terms of selector, or I would say in terms of filtering, it is going to see in Kubernetes, do we have any pod present with this app is colon nginx app colon web. So in the last example of our equity based selector, there was not any pod was present, so it has created the whole 5 pod. But in this case, what we have done, we have created the 2 pods. So it is going to see firstly, okay, we already have 2 pods, name of test and test 1 to 3. So it is going to create 3 of the extra pods, and the name of the 3 pods, it would be rs-webs and some random values. Okay, let me run this YAML configuration to check whatever we have discussed, is it true or not. So I'm going to mention kubectl create -f. My file name is rs-set base.yaml. See, our replica set has been created. I will mention kubectl get pods. And if you see here, as we have discussed, it is going to create a 3 pod. So it has only created the 3 pods. Why? Because firstly, this selector is going to run, and selector got the idea like we already have the 2 pod present with this label. So it has created only 3 pods. Again, the other configuration, it would be same. If you want to update the pod name, you are good to update it to 3, and randomly I would say kubectl describe replica set, and the name of our replica set is rs-web, and enter. See, initially it has only created the 3 pods, and later on randomly it has deleted the 2 other pods. So currently we are going to have only 3 pod present, and the logic, it would be the same. What we have done in desired state, what we have mentioned 3 pods, so the extra 2 pods should be deleted. So our replica set has only deleted these 2 pods. So in the same way I have implemented in, you're good to implement for notin operator or exist operator for our set based selector. Okay, the logic will be the same. Okay, so with this we have completed our day 9 discussion. Thanks a lot for watching the video.